India has the second largest population in the world, with approximately 1.3 billion people. With a landmass just over 3 million kilometres squared, India ranks as the seventh largest country by size, therefore having a very high population density. 1/3 of the Indian border is coastline, with a large peninsula sitting between the Arabian Sea to the west and the Bay of Bengal to the east. India's terrain is very diverse, ranging from coastal cities to the icy peaks of the Himalayas to the drought-ridden sands of the Thar Desert. With 2/3 of India being classed as rural, India's economy is strongly dependent on agriculture and natural resources. Although 1/3 of the Indian population is urban and expanding their technologies to catch up with the rest of the world, the other 2/3 live a more sustainable, traditional life. India's traditions have always been respectful to the earth, and although this is hard to see in the urban cities, in rural towns it is built into their way of life.
India has a very long and complex economical and political history. For centuries, India has been externally influenced by many countries, not just within the sub-Asian region, but also further abroad. Its roots as an ancient Hindu civilization, and later, its incorporation of Islam through invasion from surrounding Middle Eastern countries, established early on a country of great ethnic and religious diversity. Its strength in trade materials and manufacturing made it very wealthy, but it provided a catalyst for European exploration that would eventually lead to the foreign dominance of many Indian trading ports. The arrival of the British in the mid-1600s and the establishment of the East India Trading Company eventually led to British colonisation and supremacy in 1858. The influence of the British brought with it decades of exploitation of India's people and resources, but the Industrial Revolution saw this impact increase substantially. During the period of 1750 to 1850, India was used primarily as a source of raw materials such as cotton and silk, which fueled the textile and manufacturing industries of Britain. While Britain blazed into a new era of industrialisation and productivity, there was little regard for the welfare or economic progress of key contributors to their success, such as India. India's own textiles industry declined and modern industries were not encouraged. In short, the development of the West was at the East's expense, the repercussions of which are still being felt today. Colonisation in 1858 was inevitable, and with it came conversion to British practices, including systems of government and administration, undertones of which India still maintains today. As it stands, the Republic of India is a federal democracy. The federal system encompasses distribution of power between a main national government and smaller state and local governments. This is a very convenient method of governing due to India's large geographical size and population. As a democracy, India's citizens enjoy equal rights to participate in government issues and vote for desired candidates at allocated elections. As such, those elected to government positions have derived their legitimacy from the people and are expected to uphold the policies and belief systems that got them there. India is also classified as a secular state, which makes government agencies neutral in matters of religion. When India gained independence in 1947, it was faced with the challenge of finding a new model of economic development. A socialist style of planning and government regulation was adopted with the hopes of modernising the nation and developing the country out of poverty. Reduction in the private sector and government control over all major industries such as coal, steel and the motor industry came with extreme over-regulation and corruption, and the Indian economy became stagnant. Coinciding with these changes was rapid population growth, which would eventually lead to a national food crisis, and India being unable to self-sustain its population without the reliance on imports. The economy was in crisis for several years, with economic growth rate averaging at just 3.5% per annum from 1950 to 1980. Economic reform in 1991 loosened restriction on foreign investment and contributed to a freer market, with substantial economic growth in the years following. Today, India is one of the fastest growing economies in the world, with its annual growth rate for the year 2015 to 2016 sitting at 7.6%. India's top export products are refined petroleum, diamonds, packaged pharmaceuticals, jewellery, and rice. Mining and agriculture are the key industries that contribute to gross domestic product. Refined petroleum is India's number one export resource, making up 11% of India's total export margin and equating to $29.2 billion. Agriculture, while being an industry responsible for key export products, also holds the country's main source of occupational economy, with just under half the working Indian population making their living within an agricultural-related field. Whilst the focus on these industries has led to rapid economic growth and continues to establish India as a global trading force, it has come at a price. What has been economically necessary has also been environmentally devastating.
As the third largest greenhouse gas emitter, India has contributed significantly to the problem of climate change. India's dangerous air pollution is a major contributor to the problem, and it is now being regarded as worse than that of China, the world's largest greenhouse gas emitter. The air pollution in many Indian cities are reaching extreme levels, threatening the health of the population. According to the Greenpeace analysis of NASA's data, cities such as Delhi, Agra, Kanpur and Patna are experiencing some of the worst pollution levels, greater than Beijing's toxic levels. More than 60% of India's power is sourced from coal-fired thermal power plants. These serve to release both nitrogen oxides and sulfur oxides. Furthermore, the number of vehicles on India's roads increase daily. Additionally, indoor air pollution is rising as 87% of rural houses and 26% of urban houses cook by burning biomass. Kerosene, a source of black carbon, is used to light lanterns in 30% of rural homes. 2015 was India's worst year for pollution. The amount of airborne pollutants reached extreme levels in Delhi of 153 micrograms per cubic metre, in which Beijing reached 92.4. This was a result of India's elevated levels of burning coal, waste and petrol. According to the World Health Organization, the safe level is 25, in which both India and Beijing far surpassed. India's quickly growing use of fossil fuels had a major effect on the greater pollution levels, which rose in the period between 2000 to 2012. Usage of both coal and oil rose to 110%, with 70% during the 12 years. According to Greenpeace, major contributors to India's pollution is industry and agriculture, power generation and transport. According to the World Health Organization, in 2003, India had approximately 1,800 deaths daily due to its pollution, with 2.7 million deaths occurring in 2012 worldwide. Some major effects of such air pollution is a greater risk of heart disease, lung cancer, and chronic respiratory disease. India's rapid growth in vehicles is to a considerable extent responsible for air pollution. 5 of India's cities, including Delhi, are responsible for approximately 16% of India's motor vehicles, with Delhi alone accounting for 8%. The number of motor vehicles in Delhi are growing at a rate of approximately 7% per annum. The city of Mumbai was spared the shame of being one of the most polluted cities in the world, in which Delhi took the title in 2014, according to the World Health Organization. A recent highway development this year in Mumbai is threatening to create more air pollution problems. Previously, Mumbai was protected from considerable air pollution with its sea breezes, which effectively cooled the city. However, with Mumbai's new coastal road, the exhaust fumes from 200,000 vehicles will move towards the city and suburbs every day. According to Samira Abdullali from the Awaz Foundation, the coast road will increase air pollution as additional traffic is placed in an area where natural wind patterns carry pollutants into the city during some seasons. According to the Indian Institute of Technology located in Mumbai, in 2015, air pollution was the cause of 80,665 adult deaths in 30 years, both in Mumbai and Delhi. This is double the amount of 1995. In Delhi, the deaths were predominantly due to vehicle exhausts. While Mumbai's new coastal road may prove effective in lessening transport time, it is going to severely contribute to the problem of climate change, creating greater pollution levels in the city. The city of Kolkata in India is also suffering from the effects of major air pollution, threatening the health of many citizens. Furthermore, it is believed that it is also contributing to the Himalayan climate change. This is a prime example of how India is contributing to the problem of climate change in other parts of the world. In 2012, the Centre for Science in New Delhi found that in Kolkata, 7 out of 10 people experience respiratory problems. Those most at risk are traffic policemen and the homeless. Much of Kolkata's pollution is caused by the many vehicles crowding Kolkata's roads. This has been connected with the alarmingly elevated levels of lung cancer. Furthermore, this pollution that is detrimental to the lives of Kolkata's citizens is also impacting the melting of the glaciers in the Himalayas. Soot and black carbon from diesel fumes, cooking fires, smoke from coal burning as well as waste burning are major contributors to the problem of the Himalaya glacier melt. This black carbon, predominantly from Kolkata, rises into the atmosphere and is transferred by wind into the Himalaya snow and ice. This has been causing the surface to darken, lessening reflexive ability and furthermore allowing the surface of the Himalayas to gather more heat. The International Centre for Integrated Mountain Development believes that around 30% of the glacier melt in the Himalaya mountains is caused by black carbon, most of which originated in India. Additionally, the International Centre for Integrated Mountain Development believes that black carbon is also changing rainfall patterns and monsoons. A study conducted in 2013 by the International Cryosphere Climate Initiative and the World Bank estimated that around 1 million deaths could be spared in the Himalayas by reducing black carbon and methane emissions. Additionally, rice and wheat crops could become considerably greater with the reduction of black carbon emissions. India's many dumping grounds are major contributors to the problem of climate change that is threatening the world today. Mumbai is home to 3 major dumping grounds, the oldest and largest of which is the DNR dumping ground. DNR does not have an appropriate waste management strategy, and hence the mound is built up to a height of almost 18 stories. Unfortunately, there have been numerous occasions where the garbage is burnt, either by authorities wanting more space or rag pickers so they can collect metallic waste. However, the burning is not always done intentionally. The dumping ground holds multitudes of mixed garbage that has been left to rot in the open, and hence, due to internal combustion, dangerous fires can occur. These fires create considerable pollution by releasing highly toxic gases into the atmosphere, putting countless lives at risk. On the 27th of January in 2016, a fire occurred in the DNR dumping ground, resulting in so much smoke that NASA satellites were able to capture images. The fire spread throughout 326 acres, leading to smog in many neighbouring areas. The occurrence of the fire resulted in a pollution increase of a frightening 40%, creating respiratory problems for many residents. The NASA images which captured the smoke from the DNR fire showed that all of South Mumbai had been covered. Furthermore, this smoke even reached the Arabian Sea. According to the System of Air Quality and Weather Forecasting and Research, the air quality index increased to 341 in the area of the dumping ground. Under 2 months later, another fire occurred at the dumping ground, lasting 3 days and resulting in more toxic air. Evidently, India has played a significant role in the contribution to climate change. India's main contribution is its air pollution, resulting from vehicle exhausts, black carbon emissions which are threatening the Himalayas, and garbage pollution releasing toxic gases into the air.
As the 4th largest emitter of carbon dioxide, India is currently being affected by climate change in a number of ways. Drought and extreme heat risks are causing life-threatening issues for much of the Indian population, particularly affecting the poorer residents of India. India's economic growth is causing enormous pressure on renewable energy resources, which is impacting heavily on their environment. It is apparent that India is already experiencing a much warmer climate than has previously been observed by climate scientists, and this is creating economic problems, extreme flood risks, and even higher mortality rates amongst the poorer people of India. As the average temperature in India rises, it creates longer and drier heat waves that are affecting much larger areas. Behind China, India is the 2nd largest producer of rice and wheat. The rice and wheat industry provides a steady income for India's economy. However, as the temperatures continue to rise, it becomes more and more difficult for the agriculture industry to predict the best times to harvest their crops. It is expected that by 2040, crop yields will have dropped significantly due to longer droughts and extreme heat. India's monsoon season has also become more unpredictable over the last few years. This is thought to have been caused by the world's average temperature rising by at least 2 degrees. An unpredictable monsoon season also has big implications for India's rice and wheat growth, because along with extreme heat, too much rainfall is also damaging to crop yields. Mumbai has the world's largest population that is exposed to coastal flooding, which is caused by rising sea levels. One of the largest contributors to rising sea levels in India is the warmer climate melting the ice caps surrounding the Himalayan glaciers. Whilst Mumbai hasn't had any serious floods since 2005, it is still a huge risk for locals if temperatures continue to rise. Seawater flooding is another issue for rice and wheat crops, because if the crops are exposed to too much salt water, this can also lead to a decline in production. Not only does the decline in rice and wheat production affect India's economy, it has also been recorded that due to malnutrition it is stunting growth in young children, especially children in poor families. Growth stunting is expected to rise by 35% by 2050 if nothing is done about climate change. Flooding and extreme heat alone are huge issues for India, but combined they are creating a number of serious health risks, mainly for the poorer part of the population. Flooding in warmer conditions produces an overwhelming increase in malaria and other vector-borne diseases, such as Lyme disease and dengue fever. Saltwater intrusion caused by rising sea levels and floods also has health risks that could potentially lead to a higher mortality rate. Saltwater intrusion has a higher risk of contaminating drinking water, which in turn will cause a rise in diarrhea and cholera outbreaks. If not treated correctly, these illnesses can be fatal. As much of the attention is drawn to the wealthier population of India, water and food security have become a serious issue for those in the least developed parts of India. The Indian population is expected to grow by 500 million in the next 50 years, and because the population is growing so quickly, it is becoming increasingly difficult to put a much-needed focus on those who are being affected by climate change the most. Extreme heat is uncomfortable for anyone. However, not having sufficient access to reliable drinking water and food makes the risk even worse for those who can't afford what many of us take for granted. It's the same issue when it comes to flooding. Drinking water becomes even more unreliable as bacteria grows at alarming rates when exposed to warm weather and masses of water. And when floods destroy crops that were waiting to be harvested, malnutrition becomes a huge issue for poor families who a lot of the time don't have access to or the money to access other foods. Rising temperatures and rising sea levels are the main contributors to India's climate change problems. High temperatures and increasing sea levels are serious problems on their own. However, the follow-on effects are proving to be extremely dangerous and have serious potential to continue getting worse for the less fortunate residents of India if grave action isn't taken to improve the condition of climate change.
On a local level, there are a lot of changes going on working towards solutions for climate change in India, with campaigns and action taking place right now. However, on a global scale, India is finding it hard to bring their solutions into a reality. In 2008, the National Action Plan on Climate Change was developed, putting into place policies in which India would aim to uphold. The main missions outlined included an energy conservation building code, development of technologies for producing power from waste, such as biochemical conversion and wastewater usage, long-term public transport options to reduce the amount of cars and motorbikes on the road, a green India with the afforestation of 6 million hectares, raising the national target area of land under forest from 23 to 33%, and therefore creating carbon sinks. Working on sustaining the Himalayan ecosystem as it is a key source of fresh water for India. These are examples of the larger scale solutions India has to reduce their footprint on the planet. However, without financial assistance from more industrialized countries, some of these solutions are out of reach. With an alliance between India and a wealthier country, these solutions could become a reality, and India could take a great leap forwards in climate change prevention. Also in 2008, the Indian Youth Climate Network was founded, a not-for-profit coalition bringing a voice to the youth of India. The main driving force behind the IYCN is to bring awareness and education to the public of India on the impacts and causes of climate change. In January 2009, 12 members of the IYCN loaded up 3 solar-integrated electric Riva cars with their musical instruments and spent the next 5 weeks touring around India singing songs for action against climate change. The band, Solar Punch, covered over 3,500 kilometres in the electric cars and played shows in 15 cities. In each city, the band demanded action against climate change. In Chennai, the band demanded mandatory rainwater harvesting for all buildings. In Goa, they demanded green architecture. In Baroda, they demanded solar power for schools, and the list goes on. Presenting these solutions through music really spoke to the public of India, and was an effective way to spread awareness on the issue of climate change. It is very clear how seriously the population of India is taking climate change matters, not just on a governmental level, but on a local level as well. India has some of the richest, most dense forestation on the planet, which in the past has been overexploited and destroyed. This reached a breaking point in 1973 when local villagers hugged trees to stop deforestation and consequently formed the Chipko movement. The locals realised the value of the biodiversity in their forests and started volunteering to protect them. Several state governments have now given ownership of these forests to local communities so that they can protect, conserve and manage them sustainably. Close to 300,000 community groups across India are now conserving forests. This is a step in the right direction for completing the mission outlined in the National Action Plan for Climate Change for raising the amount of land under forest from 23 to 33%. Small villages across India have realised the importance of preserving their native seeds to grow crops from after observing the decline in produce when introducing chemical-fed hybrid seeds. The native seeds have proven they deal well with drought and can also withstand heavy monsoonal rains. The crops grown from native seeds are far more consistent than those of a hybrid nature. Community seed banks are growing in number across India to combat chemical farming. Traditional methods of farming are also self-sustaining, with all the nutrients needed sourced locally, mainly from cow dung and composting leaves. With the predicted extreme weather patterns and changes in climate that India will see over the coming years, strengthening the number of native seed banks would be a good solution to the expected crop falls, as they are far more resilient and sustainable than chemically farmed hybrid crops. 2/3 of India's people rely on the rain for a living, and as climate change impacts are looming, this is a terrifying concept for most. In the northwestern region of India, the Thar Desert is home to a vast number of villages. As one of the hottest regions in the world, the Thar Desert does not have any perennial rivers to rely on, and water is scarce. In 2009, the villagers decided action needed to be taken against the droughts they were experiencing. They set up a campaign to build new water harvesting structures and to renovate the pre-existing ones. Over 45,000 household tanks were built, and each would hold enough water to meet the drinking needs of a family for 6 months. Wells were restored and ponds were created. The following monsoon season, 1,300 million litres of water was collected. This is a prime example of how India is working on a local level to form preventative measures for climate change and the impact that it will have on its people. The Thar Desert is also home to the largest solar park in the world, which has the capacity to produce over 600 watt of solar energy. Solar panel structures have also been built running along the top of canals. This is a two-faceted solution in which the evaporation of the canal water is lowered, and the solar panels don't take up precious land space. It is innovative ideas like these that show that India is thinking outside the box when it comes to climate change solutions, and not only looking at climate change on a large scale, but on what can be done right now to better the living conditions of its people. India has plans to increase its solar power capacity to 100 gigawatts by 2022. In major cities, the amount of motor vehicles on roads is a huge issue in terms of air pollution, and the only answer to combat this is better public transport. In 2009, the city of Ahmedabad, with a population of 4.5 million, built the first ever bus rapid transit system in India. The system consisted of an enlarged lane in the middle of the road where the buses could run uninhibited by other traffic and were given right of way. The buses, being a faster and more affordable way of transport, have reduced the amount of motor vehicles on the road in Ahmedabad, and as a result, the air has already cleared considerably, creating better living conditions. Over the next 10 years, 14 major cities across India will adopt the bus rapid transit system. It is evident that the people of India are working hard on a local level to develop solutions to climate change impacts and to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. Although no large-scale definite solutions have been put in place as of yet, it cannot be denied that the people of India are very conscious of the climate change issue and are doing what is within their power to make a difference.